Okay, so I'd received some requests from some people to make a video on how to create a graph and then go ahead and put it into your Science Fair outline. So I'm going to show you how to do that today. This should already be turned in, but just in case, I know there's a couple of people I told it was okay if we re-looked at it, tried it again, and turned it in a little bit later. So this is going to be real quick. You can see I already have my data put into this Excel spreadsheet. For this particular experiment, I chose to plug in information for different kinds of fertilizer and the average growth of a plant per day that had been treated in that type of fertilizer. And so this is just my raw data. I did it for 14 days, 2 weeks, and I measured the growth per day. And what I did with this is that I took the average from each one of those. So if you were to click on this, you can see that this is the average of all of these together. This one is the average of all of these together. This one is the average of all of these together, and this one is the average of all of these together. And what you get is a pretty clear average. Now the idea here is to take this into a graph. So what you're going to do is you are going to highlight that whole area, select whatever kind of graph you want to do. Now if you're comparing different types of categories like I am, fertilizer, you might want to go with the column or the bar graph. If you're looking at something that's over time, you can look at the line graph. And if you're going to do line graph, I would actually do scatter plot. And if you have questions about that, you can come and see me. And then if you're doing, a little bit of pieces of a whole, you might want to look at doing the pie chart. But for this case, we're going to go ahead and we're going to select a bar graph. And so I'm going to pick that very basic one. And here's our graph. Nice and simple. We'll make it a little bit bigger. I personally don't enjoy a lot of the extras on these things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here and select a chart layout. I'm looking for one that has a title and has both axis labels. And if it doesn't have one, if we can't find one, which I did find one, there is also a way to find that by going up to chart layout. And there you can insert the different title, or you can insert the different axis labels. You can go ahead and do that here. But for me, I don't really like all this extra stuff. I want my graph to be nice and big and nice and clear. And that includes getting rid of these little lines that some people like because it allows them to line up things. I don't really like those, so I get rid of them. But now what you can do is you can go in and you can change the name of your axis titles. So this is going to be type of fertilizer. And over here it will be average growth. And that unit is going to be, this is going to be in millimeters. And we're going to want to put that is a average growth per day in millimeters. And we can change this to say average plant growth per day in different fertilizers. Okay, a very clear title, exactly what we want. And at this point, if you want, you can be done. This is perfectly acceptable. You see all of the different types of fertilizers, including the control group, and you can clearly see which ones were better than the others. But if you want to go a step further, and you do not, this is not a requirement, but this will make your presentation when you go ahead and do it a little bit simpler. You can add these things, again, this is in chart layout. You can add these things called error bars. And you're going to want to select error bars with standard error. And what that does is it gives you essentially how accurate your data is. So yes, we discovered that Miracle-Gro is, you can see right there, it has a value of 0.047 growth in millimeters per day, and Vigora has 0.44. So you would sit there and say that Miracle-Gro clearly grew more on an average per day than Vigoro. However, if you use these error bars, the error bars overlap, meaning that one isn't clearly higher than the other. Like the control group error bars are much lower than the Vigoro one. That's not the case for the Miracle Grow and the Vigoro. So this is what we call statistically significant. It is statistically significant that there is a difference between the control group and Vigoro, meaning that Vigoro really did increase the amount of growth per day in these plants. When we look at it through Vigoro and Miracle Grow, because those error bars overlap, we cannot say statistically significantly that the Miracle Grow helped the plants grow more than Vigoro. Okay, that's just something you can add in, and that's something that's really cool when you're doing your actual presentation for you to be able to talk about. Okay, so that's just something extra. When you get to this point and you are ready to put this into your actual assignment, into your actual outline, what you're going to do is you're going to save it to the desktop. So you're actually going to right click on the graph and you're going to save as a picture. It doesn't matter what you save it as. I'm going to save it as a chart, or we'll say Science Fair graph. That works. Science Fair graph. And we're going to make sure you take it off of pictures and you put it to the desktop. That's a very important part. So save it to the desktop, and then we're going to go out to our, I'm actually going to minimize this guy, and we're going to go out to our outline. Now I have nothing in this one because I just made a copy just to be able to do this real brief, but you look at your analysis of the results, and here somewhere on your desktop should be that graph. So all you're going to do now is click on it, hold it, and drag it to the position that you want it, and Google Docs will say creating image, and then it's there, and all you have to do is move it around. Okay, not a big deal. Hopefully that helps explain this to some of you. If you have any more questions, please come and see me.